and references being shared across the community, organized for quick browsing. Use it to spot patterns, pull links, and build your own research list. Qnotables.com. Browse the notables, verify the facts, stay informed. All reports can be found on qresearch or qnotables.com. Notables do not equal endorsements. We are researchers who deal in open source information, reasoned argument, and dank memes. We do battle in the sphere of ideas and ideas only. We neither need nor condone the use of force in our work here. From the Q Research Board's January 20th, 2026, former Bank of England Chief Mark Carney is making waves by saying Canada's relationship with China is now more predictable than its relationship with the U.S. under President Trump. The remark highlights how nervous some global financial elites are about Trump's harder line on trade, Arctic security, and North American sovereignty. Kurdish officials in Syria say roughly 1,500 Islamic State detainees managed to escape from a prison compound during unrest. The mass breakout is raising fresh alarms about the durability of counter-terrorism gains and the risk of ISIS veterans regrouping in the region. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker has signed a clean slate law to seal the criminal records of certain nonviolent offenders. Supporters say it gives people a second chance at work and housing. Critics warn it could hide information that employers and communities have a right to know. NASA is addressing a bizarre viral claim that gravity will disappear from Earth on August 12th. The agency says there is no scientific basis for the rumor, calling it internet nonsense and reminding the public to treat sensational online claims with a heavy dose of skepticism. In California, residents near Indio Hills report feeling quite a jolt after a magnitude 5.1 shallow earthquake rattled the region. Officials say there have been no immediate reports of major damage, but they're urging residents to check emergency kits and stay ready for aftershocks. Conservative commentators are blasting reports that 81 Republican lawmakers voted to fund what critics describe as an elite political organization that effectively boosts Democrats and tries to crush the MAGA movement. The vote is being held up as another example of the establishment GOP ignoring its own voters. In Jerusalem, ultra-Orthodox Haredi extremists rioted after authorities ordered autopsies on babies who died at an unlicensed daycare. Demonstrators say the autopsies violate religious law, while investigators insist they need answers on how the children died. Supporters say President Trump is preparing to sign a peace deal in front of the very people who tried to tear down his presidency. The symbolism is deliberate, a message that he intends to push forward with his foreign policy agenda despite years of lawfare and political sabotage. A renewed claim is circulating that during the Obama years, over $100 million in federal funds were channeled through church-based NGOs to resettle large numbers of Somali migrants in Minnesota. Backers say it explains the scale of the state's later welfare fraud scandals. Critics of the claim argue the programs were legal refugee placements. President Trump says he had a very good call, with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte focused on Greenland. Trump says all sides will meet in Davos and that there is now agreement that Greenland is imperative for national and global security, insisting there can be no going back on that reality. In Nigeria's Kaduna State, armed Islamist gangs reportedly kidnapped at least 172 Christians during Sunday services. The mass abduction is the latest in a series of attacks on rural churches and highlights the ongoing danger believers face in parts of northern Nigeria. Authorities in Indiana say a judge and his wife were shot in their own home, sending shockwaves through the legal community. Investigators are working to determine whether the attack was random or tied to the judge's work on the bench. French President Emmanuel Macron has reportedly sent a note to President Trump regarding Greenland and upcoming talks at Davos. While details remain private, the outreach underscores how unsettled European leaders are about Trump's push to reshape Arctic security and control over critical islands. Police in Portland, Oregon, responded to reports of shots fired near the Lloyd Center, with 2 officers said to be wounded. A heavy law enforcement presence quickly descended on the area as authorities urged residents to stay away and shelter in place until the scene was secure. On Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula, record snowfall has buried streets so deeply that residents are now skiing off rooftops and using second-story windows as doorways. Local officials are struggling to clear roads as videos of the surreal conditions spread online. In Minneapolis, critics say the story is no longer just about stolen welfare dollars. It's about alleged conflicts of interest surrounding Mayor Jacob Frey. They point to his wife's past work for a lobbying firm tied to the Feeding Our Future scandal and donations from indicted figures as evidence that the system was rigged from the inside. Breaking reports from Portland describe an active shooter situation in which multiple officers have been shot. Live streams show a massive police response as SWAT teams move in, while viewers are urged to avoid speculation until details are confirmed. Hollywood activist Frances Fisher and other organizers are promoting a January 20th walkout they say will peacefully storm congressional offices. Their goal is to pressure lawmakers into filing articles of impeachment against President Trump, accusing him of tyranny and a hostile takeover of the country. Russian-linked commentator Kirill Dmitriev is touting what he calls a coalition of the punished, suggesting that nations sidelined by the old global order are realigning. His messaging frames this as a quiet revolt against Western elites who, he claims, misused their power. President Trump is blasting a reported plan by the United Kingdom to transfer the island of Diego Garcia, home to a vital U.S. base, to Mauritius. He calls it an act of total weakness that China and Russia will happily exploit and says serious powers only respect strength. At Davos, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is holding a closely watched news conference. Markets are listening for clues on tariffs, dollar policy, and how aggressively the administration plans to confront European resistance over Greenland and other strategic issues. Cameras captured President Trump stepping off Air Force One and immediately boarding a helicopter at Joint Base Andrews. The quick transfer underscores the pace of his schedule as he juggles domestic stops, Davos meetings, and ongoing unrest over immigration policy. Shipping giant Cargill has launched a new vessel designed to help decarbonize its fleet. The company says the ship marks a first step toward cutting emissions in global bulk cargo traffic, an area many green activists say has been ignored for too long. An early morning 4:30 a.m. Eastern address from the Speaker of the House is on the calendar, an unusual time slot that has Washington guessing. Observers expect remarks on security, spending, or the escalating standoff with the Senate over election and immigration reforms.
At shop.isawaya.com, everything you buy supports Acun.top, the place where people talk freely no matter what. Check out our Acun Honey Pot, a jar of yummy honey that's as strong as your voice. Put it on toaster and tea. It's not just honey, it's freedom in every bite. Then there's Acun Butter, a smooth handmade skin cream that makes you feel good while you fight for what's right. Awesome wood and pieces for display only. Hang them up or set them out. They're for showing off Acun's tough spirit. Want to help even more? Get a proto membership. So go to shop.isawaya.com now and grab some goodies. Help Acun.top keep free speech alive, and let's keep the ideas flowing loud and free.
All reports can be found on QResearch or Qnotables.com. Notables do not equal endorsements. We are researchers who deal in open source information, reasoned argument, and dank memes. We do battle in the sphere of ideas and ideas only. We neither need nor condone the use of force in our work here.
From the Q Research Boards, January 20, 2026. The International Monetary Fund is warning against a tit-for-tat trade war between Europe and the United States. With tariffs already on the table over Greenland and NATO spending, the IMF says an escalation could hit growth on both sides of the Atlantic. Republicans pushing the SAVE Act say voter ID and proof of citizenship for federal elections are non-negotiable. They argue that without basic identification, the system is wide open to abuse and foreign interference, and they want the bill passed before the next major vote. At Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, the crowd roared as the president was shown on screen during the national anthem. The reaction is being shared as a snapshot of how much support he still commands in parts of the country that feel ignored by coastal elites. Commentators are teasing, "You won't believe what Trump is doing at Davos." hinting that he plans to confront the global financial class on tariffs, migration, and digital IDs. Supporters see his visit as a direct challenge to the World Economic Forum's long-running agenda. Democrats in Virginia have introduced a bill that critics say openly discriminates against white men in government contracting. The proposal would tilt state contracts toward other groups in the name of equity, raising serious questions about whether race and sex are now being used as filters in who gets taxpayer-funded business. In Germany, police have reportedly formed a specialist unit dedicated to reviewing memes. Authorities claim they are targeting extremist content and hate speech, but free speech advocates warn this is another step toward criminalizing humor and political satire online. NORAD forces are heading toward Greenland as part of stepped-up Arctic activity. Officials frame the move as routine training, but it comes amid rising tension over control of the polar region, where the US, Russia, and China are all vying for strategic advantage. Denmark is sending additional troops to Greenland in response to its very public row with President Trump over the island's future. Copenhagen insists it is asserting sovereignty. Critics say Denmark is only now waking up to the island's importance after years of underinvestment. Commentators are revisiting Q post number 3777, which highlights President Eisenhower's famous warning about the military-industrial complex. The clip is circulating again as viewers weigh how far unelected defense and intelligence bureaucracies have gone in shaping U.S. policy behind the scenes. Barely 2 days into holding power in Virginia, Democrats have already introduced legislation to ban the hand counting of election ballots. Supporters say machines are more efficient. Opponents argue a machine-only system deepens distrust and removes a vital layer of human verification. In Germany, AfD leader Alice Weidel is declaring the country finished with migrants, warning that uncontrolled immigration has strained schools, housing, and public safety. Establishment parties call her rhetoric dangerous, but her message is resonating with voters who feel Berlin has lost control of its borders. New video of former Colorado clerk Tina Peters is circulating, showing her treatment by authorities after she raised concerns about election security. Supporters say the footage proves she has been targeted and abused for challenging the system. Critics insist she broke the law and is facing consequences. Virginia Democrats have also introduced a bill imposing vague new standards of responsible conduct on the firearms industry. The measure could expose gun makers and dealers to sweeping civil liability, prompting warnings that it's a backdoor way to bankrupt lawful businesses and choke off gun ownership. The president appeared at the college football national championship game, drawing a loud reaction from the crowd as cameras panned to his box. For many viewers, the moment underscored how deeply sports, politics, and national identity have become intertwined. On social media, President Trump posted, "Wow, they have a lot of explaining to do. Corruption at the highest level." He did not name names, but the comment is being read as a hint that new revelations may be coming about misconduct inside the federal bureaucracy or political establishment. Trump is also hammering the media for what he calls an obsession with ICE, while ignoring massive sums allegedly stolen by corrupt Minnesota politicians. He says the real scandal is how much taxpayer money vanished into fraudulent programs, while reporters chased activists instead of following the money. The president praised a televised interview with former Border Patrol Chief Rodney Scott on The Will Cain Show, calling it great, and saying Scott's firsthand experience exposes how open border policies hurt both American communities and migrants themselves. In a separate post capped in all caps, Trump declared, "America is back," pointing to falling inflation, reshored jobs, and new trade leverage as signs that his second term is reversing years of economic decline and globalist policies. The administration has moved to end temporary protected status for thousands of Somali nationals in the United States. Supporters say TPS was never meant to be permanent and that conditions have changed. Economic news shows mortgage rates dipping below 6% for the first time in months, offering some relief to homebuyers squeezed by high prices. The White House is touting the drop as evidence its affordability agenda is starting to deliver. Trump's team says he is off to a strong start in 2026 on the affordability issue, pointing to cooling housing costs, lower gas prices, and efforts to tackle junk fees. The message is aimed squarely at middle-class families who feel the last decade has been a war on their wallets. In Minnesota, anti-ICE agitators stormed a church during services, shouting and confronting worshipers they accused of harboring immigration agents. The incident is drawing condemnation from those who say political disputes should never cross the line into invading houses of worship. Online program, And We Know, is out with a new episode dissecting the latest developments in Minnesota, Davos, and the broader fight over globalism. The show continues to build a reputation as an alternative source for viewers who no longer trust corporate media.
Every voice matters. The power of free speech is more important than ever. Imagine a place where you can share your thoughts freely, explore new ideas, and engage in meaningful conversations anonymously. With online anonymity, you can express yourself without fear of judgment. It's about freedom, creativity, and connection. Join the conversation that matters. Embrace your voice. Celebrate your freedom. Visit 8kun.top today. That's 8kun.top.
All reports can be found on QResearch or Qnotables.com. Notables do not equal endorsements. We are researchers who deal in open source information, reasoned argument, and dank memes. We do battle in the sphere of ideas and ideas only. We neither need nor condone the use of force in our work here. That's all for now. Stay alert, stay informed, and never hand your thinking over to anyone on a screen, including me. God bless you. God bless our